Hello, everyone. Ryan here. I'm just providing a quick intro because we recorded this episode on Saturday, and I think as we were recording or just afterwards was when Alex Pretti was killed by CBP agents. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that at the start. You know, I'm sure most folks have seen coverage of what happened. Of course, he was a legal observer there filming, these kidnapping squads with his cell phone. He attempted to get between one of the CBP guys who had pushed a woman to the ground, as they tend to do. Just reacted with insane escalatory violence. It was like a half a dozen of these guys. They pushed him to the ground. They pepper sprayed him. They were beating him with a pepper spray canister. And then seemingly out of nowhere, they just started shooting. Shot him in the back. He was on the ground, face down, completely helpless, being restrained by, again, a half dozen of these guys. A straight up just, cold-blooded execution in broad daylight witnessed by dozens of people. And in the aftermath of that, I would say that it seems that this might be the bridge too far for a lot of people. A wrinkle here is that Pretti had a gun. He was carrying a pistol. But it was a legally registered firearm. He did not take it out or menace it, the agents, or, otherwise do anything with it. And in fact, in the video, you can see one of the agents taking his gun away from him while he's on the ground before they start shooting. And they attempted to use the fact that he had a gun, as evidence that he was going to do a massacre, that he was a domestic terrorist. But, it reached a level, I think, of the hypocrisy of these people to suggest that because this guy that we basically just killed for fun happened to have a gun, that means that he could be summarily executed by the state. It's not only pulls apart with how Republicans have behaved with regard to gun owners and other circumstances, but it's also, it's like just makes a hash of everything Republicans have been saying about the Second Amendment and constitutional rights for going on like 50 years. That the people have to be able to carry firearms in case of government tyranny. And here is the government tyranny enthusiastically supported by the conservative movement. And then one of the victims happens to have a gun. And the response from conservatives is, well, that proves he deserves it. He deserved to be killed. He deserved to be murdered by the state. And I think that was a little bit of a bridge too far for some people. And you see a lot of them, a lot of the rats deserting the ship. Even some of the most brain-dead streamers, Asmongold, that guy, he seemed to be a little wishy-washy on it. A number of conservative commentators. And just before I was recording this intro, we see that Greg, what's his name? Bovino, the little mini Einsatzgruppenführer guy who's walking around in his Nazi coat and taking pictures of himself as he sort of throws tear gas canisters at protesters and stuff. He's out. He's going back. And it looks like they might be pulling back from Minneapolis, at least partially. I don't think this is over by any stretch of the imagination, but it seems like they have really gone too far. And, I think it tends to demonstrate that the approach of the incredibly disciplined Minneapolis organizers was entirely the right one, that they won the battle of public opinion, at least, including in the brains of some conservatives who do not actually have the stomach for the type of things that they say that they want. When it comes to Pretti, who, by the way, was a white man who was a ICU nurse for the local VA hospital for veterans. And, the identity shouldn't matter in cases like this, but it does. Of course it does. It mattered that Renee Good was a mother of 3, white woman. And it matters that, this Pretti guy had a lot of he looked like a lot of conservatives look. He was had a baseball cap and sunglasses and a beard. And if the regime is willing to kill him and then retroactively justify it by saying he's a gun owner, I think that a lot of people who were previously on the fence are now seeing themselves as potential victims. And, that is to the good. And, we hope that something good could come out of the martyrdom, frankly, is what's happened to Renee Good and now Alex Pretti. We hope that they will not have died in vain, that some good will come of it, that their sacrifice will have helped the people of Minneapolis and the people of the United States, and to help us overthrow this Trumpian tyranny that we are all suffering under. So anyway, we're definitely going to come back to this in a future episode. We'll get some more coverage, see if we can get some guests on or something like that. But for now, here's our, discussion of what had happened up to Saturday. So we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.
Welcome back to Left Anchor. I'm Alexi the Greek.
And I'm Ryan Cooper, here in my take bunker in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania.
He looks, for the audience who can't see him, he looks adorable. He's bundled up and he looks like he's about to go skiing or something, snowboarding maybe. Yeah.
It is
nice and warm in that basement, huh? And then in the negative whatever weather you got going over there. I mean, it's negative whatever weather here too in Philly.
It is chilly. It got down to 2 last night, 2 degrees. And, the thing about living in an old piece of junk house with no insulation in it is that the cold air, it just comes right in.
Is that how that works?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like
uninvited, rude.
Really. Yeah. So I've just been stuffing insulation in any corners I can find and sealing up all the windows with plastic film, which makes a huge difference, by the way. But anyway, yeah I've
still cold.
Already got frostbite in my toes, but the podcast must flow.
That's right. To quote Braveheart, that'll wake you up in the morning, boy.
Yeah, precisely.
The kids these days haven't heard of Braveheart nor seen it. That's how old we are.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
And it's not for woke reasons, like they hate Mel Gibson for being an anti-Semite, because that would be respectable, but they just have no idea what the movie is.
Yeah, probably haven't heard of Mel Gibson. He's just been out of it. Who's that? Right. Is he on TikTok? I don't know.
Oh, the erasure of public memory. Anyway,
how are you going to watch a movie that's 3.5 hours long?
That's the thing. They can't. I was just we're really digressing. I was just seeing an interview with Matt Damon about how the studios make them change scripts now, so something exciting happens right away because people are watching the movies while they're on their phone at home, like on Netflix. They're on their phone during the movie the whole time. So they have to consciously think of how to write the script and devise the plot such that there's something to catch their attention, every 7 minutes or whatever.
Yeah,
it's really embarrassing. It's very embarrassing.
Yeah. We're regressing as a culture.
But the opposite. Look at this transition. The opposite of embarrassing is the citizens and people of Minneapolis and how they've responded to the terrorist thugs of ICE. Like that transition.
Yeah,
it's good.
No, absolutely. It's very much, I would say, in the spirit of rediscovering things like reading a book is nice. Watching a proper film is nice. And finding our sort of democratic heritage and finding solidarity with your other fellow citizens and resisting occupation from the worst people in the world, just about.
More than nice, different adjective. Something
it's
really
joyful, even is the word I heard from. I've done a bit of reporting, talking to folks I know, folks I found online and elsewhere, and that's a word I heard several times. Joyful.
Yeah,
that it's people are making friends, people are meeting their neighbors in an absolutely horrendous circumstance, but it's a type of oppression that bands people together. People from all walks of life and even, very different political backgrounds. It's tons of non-political people. There's plenty of centrists, even in a city like Minneapolis, but they're finding community and common cause and just looking at this horrendous brutality being imposed on them for no reason other than cruel, vindictive, racist spite.
No, it's important. The affective has always been important, even with Mamdani's success, the way that brought people together. And protests, strikes, these kinds of things, it's important for the emotions, the imagination, and kind of the imagined connectedness that we all have. That's what solidarity is about, right? That is fostered, and that helps resist the alienation and cruelty and monstrosity of fascism and capitalism. So so let's get to some of the specifics here, because people may or may not know what's been going down since the murder of Renee Good, and you covered a lot with Will Stansel, but we have some updates. New things have happened, right?
Yeah, I do recommend going to listen to that episode. He's been on the ground, like going toe to toe with these goons. I mean, basically, to give a brief, summary, there was this right-wing dipshit YouTuber who made up a bunch of lies about Somali daycares doing welfare fraud, which tied into something that did happen, welfare fraud conspiracy back during the pandemic, but in this case was not true. But that was enough. That was like triggered off the right-wing like frenzy machine. It was all the excuse they needed to send in something like 3,000 occupying, paramilitary troops, ICE and CBP, Customs and Border Patrol, into Minneapolis and the general Twin Cities area as well, to just do an ethnic cleansing campaign. I think they are targeting anyone that they can basically kidnap, who looks non-white, and usually it seems like if they are U.S. citizens, they'll like throw them out by the side of the road. Literally, like they'll like oftentimes like beat the shit out of them and then just like throw them on the side of the road, not dead, at least thankfully for that, for the most part. Some people have died. But yeah, anyone who's at all questionable, people who have a refugee application, folks who have green cards in many cases, are just being summarily deported. It's like there are probably a fair number of white people who would fall under that classification. There are a lot of immigrants in this country, a lot of students and that sort of thing, but it's exclusively just, people who appear to be not white. That's their orders. That's who they're getting. And it's to the extent where I saw recently, goes to show you how far they have like transgressed like the norms of American society, that they got the cops to complain about it. And of course, the cops were complaining because they're targeting off-duty police who were not white.
This is happening in New York and other places as well. This is like, but not only like a few of them, but it's like so common that there's been press conferences. I saw one in New York City where like a number of officers have been complaining about being harassed and detained, and had to at the last moment reveal that they're a police officer. Otherwise, who knows what would have happened? And then the ICE people scurry away.
Yeah, I mean, just the most. It's not as though police are more deserving of due process than anyone else, but it go like normally that is something they would not do.
We're the thugs around here, okay? Yeah. don't crowd out our business.
Exactly. And I've heard a number of I read a number of interviews with the Minneapolis police chief, a guy who's been on the job since 2022. That's after the George Floyd protests, who I'm sure is a cop and has like cop mentality, but he was complaining, in ways that you really don't hear police talk about other law enforcement agencies, being like, these guys are unprofessional. They're messing everything up. And it's one thing Will said is that he'll be like breaking the law, chasing these ICE guys around in his car, and the cops will just be like, didn't see nothing. They won't pull him over. That's right. I think they're pissed off.
There's a bit of an alliance. Look, I think later on, if we get to Prime Minister Carney from Canada's speech, it reminds me of what you're saying with the cops here. It's like, there's a way to oppress people. There are rules to oppressing people, and you got to follow them. Right now, you're fucking things up for us because we have a way to do the policing and the harassing and the the racist kind of control of populations. And Carney's like, there's a way, for us to be colonialists and to make things work, and you're messing with that. And so now we kind of have to side with the people here because you are not doing it our way, and we're getting caught in the crossfire.
No, I think as we've said before in this podcast, and Antonio Gramsci's conception of hegemony is instructive here. You're talking about a settled sort of political consensus across a society, like a critical mass of the population accepts either tacitly or actively a set of arrangements as to how society is going to work. And the way that traditionally American police have obtained that, they're incredibly brutal to basically poor minority people, and oftentimes poor white people, homeless people. The prison system is full of people who are often unjustly over-sentenced or innocent. But they also obtain consent from, a critical mass of especially like enfranchised, wealthier, middle-class white people and other, and even like wealthier minorities by not treating them like that, that to where if you call the police for, you need something, somebody's broken into your house, for example, they will show up. They will at least pretend, to do something about it. It's not,
middle class or upper middle class or rich people don't have problems taking their kids to school because of like mass kidnappings. I mean, we're going to get to the response, the general strike and the response of Minneapolis, but like literally day to day, getting groceries, taking your kid, like daycare centers. Like you wrote about this. I want to get more to your piece in a minute here, but like just like everyone's daily life has been disrupted and terrorized, and literally endangered. The kids, the families, the people, no matter what class background, it doesn't matter. It's just the whole city is under siege, and so you have like probably people that think of themselves as apolitical, who are usually maybe in the suburbs comfortably watching TV, and they're like in the streets, like ready to like throw Molotov cocktails or whatever, because that they've been in a way radicalized by the terrorism that's now reaching their lives, right, and their neighbors.
Yeah, the Chris Hayes book before the last one, that's like Colony Within a Nation, that was sort of about the George Floyd protests, I think it was also sort of instructive as to this dynamic, where you had a class of enfranchised people who basically lived, in a sort of democratic system where they could rely on the state to provide them certain goods, certain public goods, safety, and so on. It was very imperfect, but like it wasn't like this. And the colonized people were, the disproportionately black and brown, underclass. But now they're giving everybody the boot, including people with a lot of power and status and money. And it seems like a way that is completely unconcerned with the political legitimacy of the federal government. It's like there's a reason why you don't do this type of shit, at least not without a good reason for it. Even like adventure conquerors. I've just been reading about, a history of the Anglo-Saxons and, the Norman Conquest. And this is a big part of the Norman Conquest. You had these repeated English rebellions, and they're trying to kick out the French not even really quite a thing at that point, but the Norman invaders who basically displaced the entire top crust of English society. And they had these rebellions, and then, and eventually just increasingly violent reprisals, just go into the village and burn everything, burn the harvest, cause a famine on purpose. Like, that is a very brutal way of doing it. But like, they did it for a reason. It's like, we're on top, and you shut your mouth and you do what we say, or we're going to come and kill you. And now it's just like, for the hell of it, and in a way, and this is almost the most striking, it's like they're doing a violent occupation in much the same way as like, adventure conqueror military, but without anywhere close to the level of resources and especially manpower you would need to actually accomplish that. To go like door to door in every single house, and, violently oppress the dissent.
In part because this strategy doesn't understand the concept of solidarity, right? Like, Stephen Miller wants a race war, perhaps, but he doesn't realize that, like, not everyone is as racist as he is. It doesn't work that way, right? Actually, people care about their neighbors, and it's not just going to be like, well, there's only so many people of color in Minneapolis. How hard could it be to just target them? No, you're going to upset everyone.
I think in the back of their heads, at least, Miller maybe, and probably others, they want to touch off a riot and they want ICE officers to be killed. They want they want dead, a bloody shirt that they can wave around and say, look, this is why we have to send in the tanks. And they're not doing it, and this is something Stancil was talking about. It's like, in George Floyd protests, which a lot of this is drawing on the legacy of the connections made in those days. That was very much an internal thing. It was the domestic police department that killed that guy. And a long history of abuses going back decades and decades. And that was just such a flashpoint for conflict to erupt within Minneapolis society. Well, now everyone's united against the
and of
invader.
course, in the George Floyd protests, led to, the protests were all around the country because there was solidarity given how police are everywhere else as well. Right. But it is a little different in the wake of, like, your community literally being attacked and your, one of your citizens in your town being murdered. But but you're right. This
outsiders. It is like very much like a sort of foreigner dynamic where people are coming in. They're not from around here. They have no place in the community, and they're just brutalizing everyone.
Masked outlaws, like as you wrote in your piece, right? Who want to hide their identity from the public. Like it's the greatest paradox is, public servants, as it were, are supposed to be identifiable because their charge is to, be a part of the representative government. That is, it's so silly that it hardly needs to explain. We hardly need to explain why it's pernicious and gross and it goes against all the ideals of the country and all that. But yeah, so part of the response now has been dozens of labor organizations, other community organizations in Minneapolis, from teachers unions to SCIU to, AFL-CIO, just any number of organizations locally and nationally have helped organize what yesterday was a general strike, right?
Yeah.
No going to school, no going to work, no shopping. And I saw this picture of the busiest highway in Minneapolis, and there was like no cars on it, which was just an incredible thing. Of course, general strikes don't work just, for a day, but I think it is a kind of like, hey, Capitol, look what we can do. You want to really call our bluff on shutting things down?
Yeah, they had also if I'm not mistaken, the participation of like hundreds of local businesses too. A lot of the petty bourgeoisie who are also, they're being terrorized, right? Terrorized, and their workers are being kidnapped. There's a lot I've seen
a little disruptive.
Yeah, they folks have been posting it, and they were telling me about how in like the places you would never expect this, like just, pretty reactionary business owners, you think they still have no ICE, stay out. Because it's like, I this is my dishwasher. Like, I'm trying to make money here. Get the fuck out of here. Like
it's true. By the way, that the film One Battle After Another, we got to watch that together and talk about it sometime, because there's a part of it where there's a great satirical, like these military guys who are going to go in, they're like ICE type people, and they're talking about the threat, but the film has them just describe the threat in terms of the actual business names, and they're like, yes, so the terrorists, they're at the Carlos's laundromat, and they just list all these small business that are obviously innocuous and just part of the community. And it's like so obvious what's going on is this absurd labeling of terrorism when it's just like people trying to work and serve the community, right?
Yeah, and I think that it tends to demonstrate that sort of tactic, which also there was a huge rally against ICE that took place in downtown Minneapolis. It had 50,000 people or something, and it is, by the way, cold as shit there. It is like 9 below
negative whatever,
below zero, and that was before it while the sun was still up. So like minus 20, 23 Celsius, something like that.
Apparently yesterday, what 50,000-ish people, it's been reported, came out.
Yeah.
Protest.
Yeah, that's what I saw as well. And yeah, I think it tends to demonstrate that, the tactics they've sort of naturally evolved into this, which is basically your classic sort of Gandhian, Martin Luther King, nonviolent resistance. That's the correct approach at this point, that what you're looking at right now is a sort of battle of attrition and willpower, as well as a battle for public opinion across the rest of the country. Because like they're just gumming up the works. That's what Stancil was talking about, driving his car around, that they just prevent them from doing their jobs. And the more you run out the clock, every day is another day closer to the potential end of Donald Trump's presidency, which must come at some point. And
there's a kind of brilliant jujitsu in that. So you're going to muck things up, then we're going to go with that and shut everything down, right? And see how everyone likes that, right? Because that's, I mean, it's akin to Dr. King and the civil rights movement. Oh, you're going to treat us like criminals? How about we want to go to jail now? How about all of us are going to jail? Let's get arrested on purpose. Let's see how that shifts the narrative, and we're going to do it in a way that shows who really is the source of violence here.
Yeah, and even just the presence of lots and lots of people has in itself a sort of intimidation factor for people. They're driving around in convoys of, a couple dozen guys, maybe, or less than that.
Apparently they are complaining, right? Didn't DHS send a thing out about like, oh, our poor, agents are being harassed at like gas stations and stuff when they try. I mean, I think there's incidents where they're trying to do their kidnapping, but there's so many people out and about and observing that they like roughed up the ICE agents and pushed them out of the way, and the DHS is complaining online about it.
They're stop resisting, and meanwhile, you look at public opinion polls, the reputation of ICE has fallen by like 20 points or something like that over the last couple of weeks. It's funny that Trump still has like a net positive approval on the border in some polls. But immigration enforcement has fallen catastrophically. I think it just tends to indicate how confused people are about the way the immigration happens, and people didn't have a clue, and nobody really talked about it that much during the campaign, especially not in national media. They're like, oh, mass deportation. Yeah. What would that mean? It's like, oh, you're going to round up 20 million people. It would look exactly like this, except much worse, and across the whole country all at the same time.
I mean, how many people know that the funding, right, that was increased for ICE is greater than the military budget of Israel and other countries? Like
greater than any military budget except China and the United States.
Right.
So we have our own paramilitary that we've used basically to declare war on our own cities.
We're not a functional republic if people don't understand that happened or what the implications are, because they don't. They didn't know. It's the people.
The information environment is so corrupt, that you can't have a virtuous citizenry with just everyone being comprehensively lied to all the time by the media and the internet.
That's right. That's actually what I've been writing about and thinking about a lot lately through the political theory of Hannah Arendt, because Trump is not just a liar and a propagandist and a bullshitter, but I don't know if you know that when he made statements about Renee Good and her killing, he had not even watched the video when he made his judgments. Which isn't really a judgment, it's a prejudgment, it's a prejudice thing that there's friend-enemy distinction, and I already know what happened. I don't need to know what happened to know what happened, right? Like, and so just really quickly, like the fact that she was a legal observer, there's an added irony, and all of the people that come out to observe, that's like the testimony, the bearing witness, if you will, that gives rise to an actual factual truth that we can then debate the meaning of and debate what we think about ourselves and who we're becoming based on the perspectives that allow us. Literally, there's video perspectives, right? That and the New York Times did a great job piecing together how she was killed and all that. But like Trumpism and MAGA and a lot of the media, its purpose isn't just to offer crazy arguments. It's to undermine factual reality so you can't even have an argument. There's not even a shared object in view. Yeah. And so what Arendt says is you need to have a common world in the first place before you can have pluralism. Pluralism is great. Different views and debate and discourse is great. But you have to have a shared object in view first. And that's what they've been destroying.
Yeah, the way that Kristi Noem immediately got up and just started spouting lies, this is a domestic terrorist. And the guys were like trying to get their car out of the snow. And here she came, deliberately tried to run them over. I mean, it's just like, it just got hot with, rage listening to this woman, what a disgusting, disgusting person, human filth. I think that's sort of the part of that reaction, and not just how offensive it was to lie about this innocent woman, innocent mother, who's got her fucking brains blown out all over her children's toys in her Honda Pilot, but how it was, just a assault on the very idea of, consensus reality that is just necessary for any type of, democratic politics.
That's the end of the preview, folks. As usual, we like to mention that this podcast is sponsored by the American Prospect magazine. So if you want to listen to the whole thing, you can subscribe at $5 a month if you want that, plus a free subscription to the website, plus the opportunity for a steeply discounted print subscription. You can do that if you so wish at $10 a month. And otherwise, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.